thanks for taking the time. I'm going to present to you the Contextual Security Intelligence device. It's a concept that we came up with at BalaBit, and it's a new way of looking at how information security is working today. So ever since the birth of the profession, ever since the birth of IT security as it is, people working in the field have been facing a really unpleasant situation because managers often expect you to do two things at the same time. They would like to see flexibility in business so that they can accommodate new business models, new strategies, new technologies, and they would also like to keep the level of security really high. Now for flexibility, you need looser or weaker IT control. For security, you need really strict IT control. It looks like that these two things are very contradictory in nature. And so if you're focusing on flexibility, you're going to have security issues. If you're focusing on security, you're going to hinder business because it would be a little cumbersome to go through all the security devices to somehow allow the new technologies to actually work for the company. So you're going to arrive at a bad compromise, it seems. And we asked a lot of people who are working in the field, and they told us that they're experiencing growing dissatisfaction with their job because something is expected of them by the managers that they cannot really deliver. It's either a good level of flexibility with security issues, or it's a good level of security with hindering the business flow. So something must be done, and we thought, like, even in real life, we have a situation where we're torn between two expectations or two different things that seem contradictory, and we don't always need to go the extreme way. Sometimes we just need to look at the situation and try and find the best way there is. If you're going to the market in the morning because you want to have your morning coffee and you're missing milk, you're not wearing a helmet or a bulletproof vest all the time to get through to the other side of the street. You're simply looking at the situation and trying to have a conduct that's suitable for that situation. If a double-decker comes along, you simply don't step down on the lane because you know that it's probably going to really painful. So you wait for the bus to pass, and then you're crossing the street. Something like this must be done in the business too. So we looked at business, we analyzed it, and we saw that most of the businesses most of the companies, security companies that we're talking about, they're using a control-based approach. Now, the control-based approach is very similar to an imaginary town being surrounded and secured by a single wall. This is what it is. And it's really effective against a horde of unthinking, mindless zombies because they would simply start marching towards the wall and it would be bounced off by it. So this is effective against zombies, but if you have someone clever who comes along, like a spy with a huge enough ladder, he will be able to climb through. But simply lean the ladder against the wall and climb through. This is how it is. So what would be the reaction of these companies to the spy who comes along with a big enough ladder? They would simply hide in the wall, make the IT security stricter. Because if he comes along with a 10-meter long ladder, they would simply make the wall 15 meters high so they cannot get through. If they see someone else coming along with a tree trunk, then you imagine he wants to bash down the wall, you would simply make the wall a little thicker. If you're adding bricks either on the top or behind the wall to make it thicker, you're building a robust system, very solid system, which is actually something that goes against what the managers want. They want flexibility. If you're building more of the same, you're changing the quantity of the product, you're building more, bigger, better, more robust, but you're not changing the quality, you're not changing the way you're looking at the thing. Because it's essential to see that a wall in itself doesn't stop attackers, it only slows them down. Eventually they will be able to get through. A wall is good against auto attacks like viruses and spams, but if anyone wants to get into your system, a hacker, it's an individualized thing, he will be able to get through. You need someone else to take care of this thing, and we looked at how security works in real life, and we saw that it's very much based on observation. If you go to a pub, you'll see that the bouncers are looking over the crowd, looking for someone who looks a little fishy, who looks like someone who's going to make some trouble. They're focusing their attention on these guys instead of everyone else, because you cannot have an entire scope, because just that takes away your energy. You're wasting your time looking at everyone. You need to look at the bad guys. So we need monitoring on top of control, because control in itself isn't efficient against individualized attacks. So the environments have changed. Our response to these environmental conditions need to change too. We need to use intelligence in surveillance and also in intervention, because we need really good information so that we can accommodate both flexibility and security at the same time. The only way we can get really good information is by really good monitoring. So we need monitoring to get information based on which we can actually assess the way that we should behave. And these are the steps that we need to take. One is we need to base our decision making on real-time and up-to-date information so that we know the situation. We familiarize ourselves with the situation, we know what's going to happen, we know the potentials in it. The second one is we take contextual information, we know who the users are, what they're dealing with, what data they usually deal with, and we know who the attackers might be. The third one is that we should handle our coworkers and employees as adults. They're dealing in a system that we should make these dealings and activities responsible. So that we need to set really clear rules, and we need to make our coworkers and employees follow these rules. Otherwise, they're main internal threat, and they take away our attention in the inside from the outside world. And we also need to make a good balance between control and monitoring. And we're making a shift from a control-based system towards a knowledge and information-based system so we can have a better assessment of the situation. We call this system the Contextual Security Intelligence because it uses up-to-date, relevant, and very, very well-structured information taken from the context. And if you introduce the Contextual Security Intelligence device, it's going to bring down bureaucracy, it's going to reduce the costs, and all the energy and attention and resources that you waste here or wasted before can be rechanneled into raising staff morale, IT agility, and having a greater level of security. Now this looks like a dream that you cannot really achieve. It's something I'm talking to you about, but there's no substance behind it. There is substance behind it, and it's called everything lies in monitoring, really good monitoring. There's no miracle formula for really good monitoring, but having looked at how companies operate, how they work, we managed to identify 3 different areas that need a lot of attention. 3 problematic areas that need some solution. One is logging, the other one is the case of privileged users, and the third one is the scope of the whole monitoring system. I'm going to take you through these step by step really quickly. First one is logging. Even though every application and every device inside the system uses logging and sends log messages, and a lot of security groups are using this for security monitoring. This wasn't meant to be the first. Logging wasn't meant to be used. It's not suitable for security protocols, and it comes in a number of ways. The first one is message loss. The protocol is just not good enough for security, not good enough for sending all these messages because the protocol cannot handle so much data. It gets clogged up, and a lot of good percent of the security messages, they get lost. So you cannot base your monitoring based on something that's missing, or one part of which is missing. And the second one is confidential issues. This basically means that there are large chunks of data traveling through the network containing data like passwords and personal information, card numbers, and these are unencrypted because logging doesn't encrypt anything. It just travels along the network, and if everyone hacks into the system, they will be able to see these without having to do anything else. They don't even need to break the code. They don't need to use a corresponding key to break this code. It's just going to be out there. A third one is unsupported platforms. It means that out of 100 devices that you're using, there are going to be some that, even though we said it supports logging, they would not support logging. So we need to deal with the protocols, extend this whole thing. So we need to make this logging reliable. We need to use encryption so that the chunks that are traveling through the network will be harder to steal, or they would be harder to make sense of them. The second one is we need to make a system, a network that has high performance so that the messages that are being sent do get to their destination without getting lost. So we have a 100% scope of what's happening inside the system. We can keep the logging files in one huge container. We can collect them, 100% of them. The third one is that we need to extend logging to each and every device and set up new protocols. The second case is the case of privileged users. These are users with unlimited rights. These are administrators and managers who have full access to everything inside the company, every data, every information, and they're a number one target when it comes to external threats, because once you get in, you will be able to see everything. And these users are not being watched. The reason they're not being watched is because you're using logging, and logging isn't capable of tracking down individual activity. It can only tell you that this and this and this thing happened in the morning, but you will not be able to tell who did this thing. And if something harmful happens inside the company, you can only tell that something happened inside the company, and you will not be able to tell whether it was Rebecca from the first floor or John from the 5th floor. And you cannot really blame anyone. You need to single out someone, and for that you need a tool. You need to use activity monitoring system. It says it all. It monitors the activity of the people inside the network. So from now on, with an indexed file, you'll be able to tell which people did what inside the company. It keeps files separately in individualized folders. It's an independent network device that's on top of logging, but it works with logging. It's really important because it brings the user to the focus. It's an active part of what you need to protect. With the controlling, you can take care of everything that's static, but there are active elements inside the system, and you need dynamic solution for that. And we're collecting information so that we can take that dynamic solution with privileged activity monitoring and the reliable logging system I talked about before. We have a large pool of information. It's almost too large, and we cannot really process that. We need to process it fast, and we need to process with a little bit workforce. Now, if you just have all this data, it takes either a lot of people to work through, or it takes a lot of time. And you cannot afford either because you have limited workforce and you have no time actually to react, because you need to prevent these threats to get into your system. So what you need to do is you need to focus your attention and look at the things that are important for you and not look at the things that are just usual. So in order to work efficiently, you need to somehow structure and filter this data into something that you can use and use immediately, because it's not worth just going to your boss and saying, hey boss, we got hacked 2 weeks ago and we just found out about it. Isn't that great? So you need to take immediate action. It needs to happen now. And for that, we're using a user behavior analytics system, which combines all the data that we pull in from reliable logging and activity monitoring. And we're using statistical big data analysis, painting a big picture of anything that happens inside a company. We're pulling on, drawing on contextual information like where you sign in from usually, whether it's London, Shanghai, or another different part of the world, whether you're signing in from South Africa. What time you're signing in usually from, whether you're working a night shift or a day shift. These are such, and it goes into such tiny details like how much time it takes for you to work your way through the folder network to find the file that you're looking for. Whether you're going straight, whether you're backtracking, whether you're finding a different path. If you're going straight and accessing the file that you don't usually use, it probably means there's some willful, harmful activity from the inside. But if you see that someone goes through the folders trying to find a way, but they're not immediately hitting up on it, it means that someone is doing it from the external. So you have an external threat to take care of. And we're pulling contextual information as well as historical data from years ago, and we can set up profiles for each and every individual inside the company, each team, each department, each section, and we can establish the baseline. We know what the norm for them is. We know what the routinely sphere of activities for them is, and we can also set up a margin. And if anything goes beyond that margin, sticks out from the margin, that's going to be unusual. And it's a high chance that it's going to be something fishy. We'll know that we need to pay a lot of attention on those things because they're unusual. And so based on this, we don't need to pay a lot of attention on everything that happens inside the company. We can only take care of the things that are sticking out, that are unusual against the norm. And if we look at these things, we can act really quickly. We can take preventive action. We can send security alerts to the security guys. We can also force them to log in, maybe from different device. We could send a different code to a mobile device that we know that belongs to the person who should be using these files and not someone else. And we can also just control access, deny access, so that they won't be able to see the files, get to the files. I talked about control and monitoring. Control was the metaphor for the wall around the city. It's something static. It's good against auto attacks like viruses and spams, but it's ineffective against individualized hacker attacks in info criminals. I talked about monitoring. That was a metaphor for the guard. And now you see that you need to have both of these things. You need a wall and man on top so that they can take dynamic action. And one is propped up by the other, they're supporting each other, but you need to find a perfect balance. Now what we see now in the industry is that control is being a little overemphasized. And we project that there's going to be a shift from control over to monitoring, with keeping control of course, because this cannot stand alone. Neither this can stand alone, by the way. So there's going to be a shift from control over to monitoring, so you can have a really good, efficient monitoring system. And one way to do it is to use Contextual Security Intelligence, something I talked about before in the past 10 minutes. And it's a concept developed by BalaBit. We don't wish to expropriate it. We're just going to throw it out there for the market to be embraced, because we want to change the way we think about IT security now. We think that security should support business, try and make flexible solutions while keeping a good standard of security. Second one is that we want a balanced combination of information and force. We need to be pushy about something that we do want to protect because it's important, it's precious for us. The third one is that IT security is more security than it is IT. Sometimes we need to step out of the box and stop thinking as engineers. Sometimes we just need to be the cleverest bouncers and send those people away who want to get to our information. And the final point is that employees should be held responsible, because if you set them clear rules that they can follow, you can direct your attention and resources away from internal control towards observation. Based on observation, you can get to know the situation better, you can familiarize yourself with the situation, and you'll be able to see the fishy activities, and you can take preventive action against anything that happens from the external and also from the internal against your company. And thank you very much for listening to the presentation.